So far, you've learned about art, politics, and explorers. That's all good and stuff, but today we're going to focus on something a little more interesting. The Great Witch Hunts. God damn. Of all the genocides in history, none were as paranoid as the Great Witch Hunts. As millions of people dismantled their communities in search for practitioners of black magic, thousands of innocent lives ended on a fiery stake. The Great Witch Hunt was a large-scale purging of suspected witches. It reached its apex between 1580 and 1630. Even though the persecution of witches occurred long before this, the Great Witch Hunts were iconic as they claimed the lives of 60,000 people and were fueled by many famous events during this time. One contributing factor to the witch hunt was a little-known event called the Protestant Reformation. Might have heard about it. The witch hunts?
Oh, yes. The major event that played into the fear of the people was the Reformation. After the split in the church, both sides, Catholic and Protestant, were very defensive, spawning extremism. This extremism caused varied interpretation of Christian documents, which ushered a fear of witches.
Fear of the well-being of Christianity flourished like a plague in Germany after the schism, which explains why some of the largest number of witch trials were in the German states of Fulda, Trier, and Würzburg. However, the problem quickly spread to other countries such as France and the UK as conflicting ideas diffused. Religious extremism also fueled the Salem witch trials, as many of the towns affected were controlled by strict Puritans. Misogyny was also a fueling factor of the hunt. Ever since women migrated out of the kitchen millions of years ago, they've been receiving flack from an array of douchebags. During the hunts, this only got worse, as women were viewed as susceptible to the devil's trickery and shenanigans. This made them prime targets for witch hunters. In recent history, some historians believed the witch hunts were all a crazy-ass political and economic conspiracy by the nobles to eliminate rising competitors from the lower classes. Statistics of the victims verifies this, as the accused who were not wary old hags were usually part of the middle or lower class. What separated normal folk from the witches, though? Well, it all goes back to 1484, when Pope Innocent VIII issued the Summarus Decimus Effectus, which officially acknowledged the existence of witches as an enemy of Christendom.
I've just been weight training to kill witches. Man, am I tired. Hey look, the Bible. Let me quote this piece from scripture. I announced that Satanists were meeting with demons, casting spells that destroyed crops, and aborting infants. Magicians and witches caused failing crops, freezing weather, rising crime, and mass starvation. These witches should go to heaven.
Despite what Pope Innocent said, though, the guidelines for identifying what a witch was still ambiguous. It all changed, though, when Inquisitor Heinrich Kramer wrote the Malleus Maleficarum, literally meaning the hammer of the witches. It created the stereotypical image of the witch, an old, isolated woman who is easily controlled by the devil. This book became the manual of witch hunters all throughout Europe. Commentarius de Maleficiis, also known as Comments on Witchcraft, also expanded this idea of a witch, adding in traits such as moles, cat ownership, warts, and solitary lifestyles to the list of witch stereotypes. Other sources claim that witches were women who had relationships with the devil. What is this? Anyways, these guidelines helped the witch hunters pick out hundreds of thousands of people. Once these people were arrested by the hunters, they faced brutal torture in order to get suspects to confess. If a guilty verdict was passed, the convicted witch would face a plethora of possible perilous deaths.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. What? You want to know about torture? I love torture, alright. Well, torture was used to get witches to voluntarily confess. A witch collar was an iron spike that went around an accused witch's neck with spikes in it. The strappado method was used when a witch was tied behind the back and the rope was attached to a beam. The witch was repeatedly dropped from her height and their shoulders and arms were dislocated. In the method of pressing, a witch was laid down under a board and weight was added until the witch confessed or died of suffocation. More than one method was often used. Once convicted, the witch was often punished by death. Punishment, on the other hand, was different. Burning became popular because it was believed that, at first, burning purified the blood of the witch. Hanging was the most common method of punishment.
Over time, the chaos and fear died down as early Enlightenment thoughts began to emerge. When the Age of Enlightenment finally arrived in the 1700s, it brought an end to the witch hunts in Europe altogether. The new, radical ideas of equality and freedom, combined with the weakening of religion and religious extremism, quelled the people's thirst. In England, the Witchcraft Act of 1735 abolished previous, harsher laws concerning witchcraft, such as the Scottish Witchcraft Act, and removed the death penalty for being a witch. Many other areas followed suit. In Salem, the surviving imprisoned suspects were released under the conditions that they were accused of spectral evidence. In the late 1700s, Maria Theresa banned witch hunting in Austria.
Oh, hello, my friend. I didn't realize you were there, in my house. I was just reading about the witchcraft. You see, in Scotland, the Witchcraft Act of 1563 deemed that witchcraft and the act of consulting with witches was punishable by death. The Witchcraft Act of 1735, however, repealed the Scottish and English Witchcraft Acts. Witches were subject only to fines and imprisonment. And live from New York, it's Saturday Night Live!
Unfortunately, though, witch hunts are still commonplace in primitive areas of Africa, where hundreds of suspected witchcraft practitioners are murdered each year by mob violence. Thanks to the Enlightenment, though, people of first world countries don't have to live under the fear of the Inquisition. You can have 99 problems, but a witch won't be one.